back to another YouTube video. Now in today's video, guys, I'm going to be ranking all 12 of the Halloween movies, but first, I do have some quick announcements to make. I really do apologize that I was not able to get this video out the day that I watched Halloween Kills, but I did watch it Sunday, and hopefully I will get this video out within the next couple of days. I should be open tomorrow to edit this video as well as the Friday the 13th ranking, which I did finish recording yesterday. And we got plenty of other videos that will be coming out as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But I did dress as I did to the movie theater. This is how I dressed. I had the nice little Curse of Michael Myers hat on, and then the original Halloween shirt on. So I dressed up appropriately for the movie. And yeah, I think that's all the announcements that I have to make. Make sure you read the community post so that you can stay updated with any potential content that may be coming in the future. And join the Discord link will always be in the description of every video. That's it. Let's get on to the ranking. So a few ground rules before we go on to the number 12 spot. I'm also doing this with the Friday the 13th ranking, so I'll talk about that in the Friday the 13th ranking in the video, which I already recorded. I will not be basing these movies off of the mask and how the actor was portrayed, and the reason for that is because I'm going to be making a separate ranking for that. So I'm going to be making a separate ranking every Michael Myers based on their visuals and how the actor played them. So that'll be a completely separate ranking that we'll do. This is going to be mainly based off of the characters, the plot, decisions that were made throughout the film, how enjoyable it was, things like that. It's not going to be extremely focused on how Michael Myers looks throughout the film and things like that. So let's get on to the number 12 spot. But number 12, and typically in my previous Halloween rankings, I would put Halloween 2 Rob Zombie's remake at the bottom, but this time I changed things up. In fact, this whole ranking has been changed up quite significantly. So at number 12, it is going to be Halloween Resurrection, and I've come to realize just how bad this movie is. Some of the things that it does in this movie are really, really bad and horrible decisions that any slasher movie could make. First of all, in the first 15 minutes of the movie, it already does two really terrible things. It retcons Michael Myers in the worst way possible from a perfect ending that we had in Halloween H2O, and it kills me to know that Resurrection was always a planned sequel after H2O. It just absolutely kills me that the director was always planning that, because the ending that he designed was so perfect. And then they resurrect him in the worst way possible in this movie, and they kill off a character that we were caring about. It's our main protagonist, Jamie Lee Curtis, from the original movie, in the first 15 minutes of the movie, in one of the worst ways possible. So Halloween Resurrection already right off the bat does two really, really terrible things. And then on top of that, you have some of the characters in this movie are really bad. I don't know why they placed them in here. In H2O, I'm guessing it's because they had LL Cool J in it and people seem to like him. So then they tried to go a little bit further and they put in Busta Rhymes in this movie. And you guys have heard this many times, I'm sure, if you've seen a Halloween ranking. People did not like Busta Rhymes in this movie for a few reasons. A couple of the scenes and interactions that he had with Myers were really embarrassing and really cringy. I mean, he literally karate kicks Michael Myers out of a window and bullies him like he's Freddy Krueger, and he's not Freddy Krueger. So, yeah, some of the scenes that we get with Busta Rhymes are really terrible. If he wouldn't have done that, maybe I would have accepted Busta Rhymes in this movie, but I think it was completely unnecessary. They should have just went with a normal set of actors and not any celebs and whatnot added into the movie. A few things that I'm okay with in this movie. I think the final girl in this movie is okay at times. She reminds me of the Freddy vs. Jason final girl, where there are times where she is doing all right. She's being your normal final girl, and then there's other times where she makes really cringy quotes or decisions that are just, yeah, they're cringeworthy. Like towards the end of the movie, where we have the final battle between her and Busta Rhymes against Michael Myers, and she's like, this is for this man, and this is for this guy, and this is for all of them, and it's a really cringy scene in the movie. So the final battle with Busta Rhymes and the final girl is just really cringeworthy, especially when Busta Rhymes sticks the power line into Michael Myers' area and it's just a really, really cringe-worthy movie. And the ending is really unsatisfying. It's the most cliche horror movie ending where he just opens his eyes and it's like, oh, well, maybe he's still alive. Are we going to have a sequel after this? It's really stupid. And for the longest time, I thought they were going to make a sequel after Halloween Resurrection for the new movie that was planned, but it was Halloween 2018, and they forgot about all the other movies instead of making a sequel to this movie, which I'm honestly happy because I did not want to see them continue off of Resurrection any more than they did. So, Halloween Resurrection, I think I discussed all the bad things about it. Like I said, the final girl in this movie, she's alright for the most part. One thing that I do like about this movie, though, is the side character, I forget his name, he's kind of the final girl's online boyfriend who helps her throughout the movie when she's in trouble, messaging her, telling her where Michael Myers is and whatnot. I thought he was kind of cool. I thought he was a cool character, and he was actually in one of the Final Destination movies. I believe it was the first Final Destination movie, or it was the second one, but I can't exactly remember. I thought that was kind of cool, and for going in a different direction with the Myers house setting, I thought that was an interesting idea, tying in the new technology because it's 2002 with the GoPros and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty interesting idea, but it didn't work all too well for going in a different direction. I just don't think it was executed enough for me to be like, this is awesome. A few of the kills are alright. None of them are super good. There's a few memorable kills in here, but nothing nothing really great. So, Halloween Resurrection goes at the number 12 spot. Honestly, it was really hard to decide which was worse, Halloween Resurrection or the next movie up, and I was originally going to put this movie at the bottom of the list, but I decided that Resurrection was a little bit worse because it made a few more bad decisions. But at number 11 is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, which when I was a little kid and I was watching the Halloween movies, this was one of the first Halloween movies that I watched, and I really enjoyed it because I really liked some of the kills. Some of the kills in this movie are really great, especially with the farming kills. But I think that's one of the only good things to say about this movie. Our main characters, Jamie and Dr. Loomis, have some of their worst performances in this movie. They played a lot better in The Return of Michael Myers. First of all, Jamie doesn't talk throughout half of the movie, so that's nice. And Dr. Loomis turns from crazy to creepy, and he should have just stayed crazy. So those are two things to address with the main characters. And one of the worst things that they did in this movie, just like they did with Resurrection, but it wasn't as bad because it was a character that wasn't as developed. They kill off a main protagonist from Return of Michael Myers. Forget her name, but in the first 15 minutes of the movie. And Michael Myers just takes a pair of scissors, stabs her, and boom, she's dead. And we're supposed to like this replacement, Tina, who's only been in the movie for 45 minutes now, and we don't know much about her. She is really annoying from what we've seen in the previous scenes, and we're supposed to like her because she took the hit for Jamie when Michael Myers was going to stab Jamie. She went in between them and got stabbed. We're supposed to like her because of that? No, you replaced a protagonist that we were liking from the previous film with somebody who hasn't had any character development with. Why wouldn't you just continue developing that character into the sequel instead of just killing her off in the 15 minutes? It's really stupid. You can tell this movie is an absolute mess because they had not a lot of time to develop this movie, so that's why it's an absolute mess. And especially, it shows a whole lot in the second half of the movie when they're trying to apply the Cult of Thorns stuff with the man in the black trench coat and whatnot, and he brings Michael Myers out of the jail in one of the most cliche ways possible. He shoots up the whole police station like he's some 1930s gangster or whatever with a freaking submachine gun. Shoots them all up, then gets Michael Myers out of the jail cell somehow, and he escapes. And then we elaborate more on the Cult of Thorns stuff in the next movie. This movie's a mess. I think that's all there is to say about Halloween 5. Number 10 is going to be Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's remake, which originally was going to be at the bottom of this list, and in my previous rankings, I think for the most part was at the bottom of my list. But I don't think it is as bad as the two movies before it, because at least it's not a mess. But there are things that I do not like that Rob Zombie did. He tried to take a risk, and the risk did not end up well. It was not executed well. He went into this direction of trying to make Michael Myers seem like more of a Jason, because we get those scenes where Michael Myers is having, I don't know, visions in his mind where his mom is on a white horse. There's a white horse, her mom, and then his younger self. It's really, really weird, and it gives me Jason vibes in Michael Myers, and I don't like it. So he took a risk. He went with it, but I don't like it at all. If he was going to make a sequel to the first Halloween movie, I think he should have just stuck with what he had in the first Halloween movie, and maybe recreated what the original second Halloween movie, Halloween 2 movie did. And I think he would have done an okay job. He would have chances to improve off of some of the bad things that Halloween 2 did, like not having Laurie throughout most of the movie because she was sitting in the hospital bed. He could have improved off of that, but instead he tried to take a risk. So at least he was trying to go in a different direction and not just recreate everything. Laurie, I know she has PTSD and she's really freaking out in this movie, but I think it's way too much for me to handle, almost to the point where it's kind of annoying. The kills are really brutal. So yeah, at least the kills are good. I think Dr. Loomis in this movie, much like from Halloween 4 to Halloween 5, he turns from being crazy because Michael Myers is returning to town to turning into kind of creepy and a jerk in this movie, quite frankly. More of a jerk than creepy, like in Halloween 5. So I thought that was really weird. Both endings to this movie are pretty unsatisfying. We have one ending where I think Laurie is in a hallway and the white horse comes and she starts screaming for no reason. I can't remember. There's a producer's cut and a theatrical cut for this movie. And then there's another ending where Michael Myers is outside, he's being surrounded by cops, and he's beating up Loomis, and I think he eventually successfully kills Loomis by gouging out his eyes in the theatrical cut, and then in the other cut, he's outside, surrounded by the police officers, kneeing him in the chest, and trying to kill him, and he eventually gets shot up, and so does Laurie, I believe. I don't know, I can't remember the difference between the theatrical cut and the producer's cut, but all I know is that both of them are very unsatisfying, and do some really terrible things. Like, Michael Myers fully takes off the mask, and we can see it for over a minute, and he talks. So, Halloween 2, Rob Zombie remake. One of the common negatives of Rob Zombie films is some of the dialogue also is not my favorite for a horror slasher. So, he does a good job directing, but some of his writing with the dialogue, a little bit questionable for Rob Zombie. So, that's why Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's remake, goes at number 10. Number 9 is going to be Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, or I should just say Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. And I know some people really hate this movie. Some people like this movie because they like the direction that they went with The Cult of Thorn, but I think this movie is an absolute disgrace to Michael Myers' legacy. But the reason why it gets ranked higher than Halloween 2 is, at least for going in a different direction, it was executed well, even though I don't like what they executed, and the kills are very brutal. At least the dialogue is not the same. Like, the dialogue is not really, really terrible like in Rob Zombie. And I can appreciate Paul Rudd in this movie, even though some of his acting is questionable in this movie. And this movie has a really good setting as well. It makes you feel like you're actually in fall. So I like how the cinematography is done to make you feel like it is fall. And our main character in this movie, the new protagonist that we have since Jamie was killed off, I think was done pretty well. We get to see her family situation and how she's struggling and stuff like that. So the side characters, at least for being crappy, it adds to her character more because we see how she's struggling. So it's really satisfying when those characters get killed, and the kills are really, really great and really brutal. This is almost like a slight downgrade of the Halloween remakes, because some of the kills in here are really brutal. But what are the things that I don't like? First of all, you kill off a character that we were supposed to be liking for the past, two movies. You kill her off in the first 15 minutes of the movie. Second of all, the Cult of Thorn thing, it's really confusing, and also it's a disgrace to Michael Myers' legacy. He's not supposed to have a motive. And if you're going to give him a motive, don't give him this weird cult thing where this cult is controlling him and he's really just going after family members so that he can satisfy this cult. This isn't Paranormal Activity, okay? This is Michael freaking Myers, and I think it's a disgrace what they do to his legacy trying to go in this Cult of Thorn direction. There are two versions of this movie. There's the producer's cut and the theatrical cut. I definitely recommend the theatrical cut, which I think is the better version, because I believe I watched the producer's cut and I was very dissatisfied because I was like, where's all the good kills? So make sure you watch the theatrical cut because it's so much better, and the ending is at least not cringy. Both endings are pretty unsatisfying for the most part. We have one where Paul Rudd just beats the living crap out of Michael Myers, and we don't know what happens after that. And then we have, in the producer's cut, I believe, Loomis is surrounded by these rocks and he can't move for some reason because of this hex or whatever. It's a really stupid ending. I think that's all the negatives that I have to talk about. I appreciate that they paid good tribute to Donald Pleasence. Unfortunately, he couldn't make his best performance in this movie because he obviously died during the production of this film, I'm pretty sure. So Donald Pleasence, he did the very best job that he could, and I'm glad that he was able to make it into one last movie before he sadly passed away. So they did a good tribute to Donald Pleasence, despite this movie not being the best movie for Donald Pleasence to pass away when this movie was being released, and his last Halloween movie that he would be in. So Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, it goes at number 9. Number 8 is going to be Halloween Rob Zombie's remake, which I know some of you probably would have had this a lot lower on your list, and you might be getting mad at me because I put it above some of the movies before it. But I put Halloween Rob Zombie's remake here because it didn't, at least for recreating a Halloween movie, it didn't do anything necessarily bad. It's just some of the dialogue in this movie was pretty questionable, and I think that's really about it. And obviously the dialogue fits into that category of Scout Taylor Compton, the Laurie Strode in this movie. Some of her dialogue that is from the original movie, I think, is played pretty well, especially Malcolm McDowell for Dr. Loomis. I think he did a really great job in this movie. Certainly a lot better than in the Halloween 2 Rob Zombie's remake. The first 30 minutes of this movie being spent showing us Michael Myers' childhood. I know some of you might say, well, because his childhood was really crappy, he lived in a crappy household, it gives him a motive for why he killed. I don't think it gave him much of a motive. It certainly humanized him, but it didn't give him much of a motive. So I have no problem with an extension of about 30 minutes of this movie to show us the childhood. I thought it was just interesting to see something different in a Halloween movie. And I'm totally okay with this movie being 2 hours because of those first 30 minutes, despite being a Halloween slasher. It gives us more kills, so that's a bonus. And some of the kills are really brutal in this movie. Tyler Mane does a really good job of bringing in a more intimidating Michael Myers, which I really, really like. I know I said that I'm not going to add in so much of the acting and the looks of Michael Myers in the movies because I'm going to make a separate ranking for that. But I do have to mention that Michael Myers, we get more of an intimidating side to Michael Myers in this movie, which I do like. I think that's a bonus in this movie that Rob Zombie gave us. I don't think there's much more to say about Halloween Rob Zombie's remake. Obviously, it's going to carry around some of those Rob Zombie negatives, which some of them I can't think of off the top of my head, but one of them for sure is the dialogue and whatnot. So Halloween Rob Zombie's remake goes at number 8. Number 7, the new kid on the block, Halloween Kills, which I of course do not have an individual copy for, so I'll put a picture on the side of the screen. And also just a reminder, for those of you who have not watched Halloween Kills, I would recommend skipping over this part because I'm going to get into really deep detail about this, and there is a lot to talk about for Halloween Kills as far as negatives and not so much positives. The only positives that I can say about this film, and I'm only saying this because this is the first time that I've seen Halloween Kills, James G. Courtney made a really great performance in this movie. Probably one of the best Michael Myers actors that we've had for a long time in the Halloween franchise. Did a great job, and he looked badass in that new Halloween mask and jumpsuit. playing Michael Myers really nicely. And there are certainly a lot of kills in this movie. It definitely lives up to its name. So, at least for all the problems that I have with this movie, I enjoyed it because there were a lot of good kills in it. But that's about it. The rest of this movie, there's nothing else really good to say about this movie other than that. So what's my first problem with this movie? Well, in retrospect, this movie ended up feeling like a filler movie. When I walked out of the theater for this movie, I didn't really know what to think because there was so much to process, so much to think about. But once I thought about it for a while, I said, when I got out of that movie theater, I was in the same spot that I was from Halloween 2018 because it felt like we didn't get anywhere from the Halloween 2018 ending. It felt like we left off at the same spot. All this movie did that even slightly moved the plot forward was fill in those plot holes, which from Halloween 2018, which makes Halloween 2018 look better for that reason. And there are a lot of things that contributed to Halloween feeling like a filler movie. That being, they spent a lot of time filling in plot holes. They did a lot of flashbacks, which I enjoyed. They did a lot of homages to the original, which I enjoyed, and some Easter eggs in there, which I enjoyed. But that doesn't mean that you should spend the entire movie trying to do that. Maybe a few scenes here and there, but leave that for the trailer, especially for the Easter eggs. Leave that for the trailer or the homages to the original, so that people can watch the trailer and they see those unique things that they can, those unique resemblances or reminiscence from the first film, and they can be like, ooh, I like that, that's kind of interesting, and it'll bring them in. People will want to see the movie for that reason, especially diehard fans, which diehard fans, they're going to see any Halloween movie, let's be honest, but it'll make them anticipate watching the movie even more and get them more excited. So they should have just left that for the trailer. If they would have figured out how to combine that with moving the plot forward, I think this movie would feel a lot less like a filler. So enough with the filler stuff. Let's talk about a few other things that I didn't like about this movie. For filling in the plot holes, I don't like this Hawkins direction that they're going with. They are crapping on Halloween 2 so much in these interviews and stuff like that are having for these new Halloween movies, but they make the same exact mistakes as the Halloween 2 movies did. First of all, you give Michael Myers a motive and even change his entire motive. We always thought it was Laurie Strode, but now you're going to have also somewhat of his motive being going after Hawkins. It doesn't make any sense. I don't like how they're trying to tie in Hawkins in this movie. I don't know why they even brought him in to the Halloween 2018. It just provided a bunch of confusion and left with a lot of plot holes for Halloween 2018 that we now had to waste our time filling in Halloween Kills. So I felt that Halloween 2018 would have been completely fine if they would have just left out Hawkins and we wouldn't have to worry about filling those in Halloween Kills. And when I learned why Hawkins was involved in this, I really didn't like what direction they were trying to go in. And also, they crap on Halloween 2, and Laurie sits inside of the hospital for the whole movie. From when she leaves the building that's on fire, she gets to the hospital, she sits in the hospital bed, and all we see of her is talking with Hawkins about some of the new stuff that we're learning about, this new timeline and stuff like that. And she sits in there. There's one scene where she comes out and she knees a doctor in the chest while the mob is coming in, and she goes right back in. And at the end of the movie, it's really stupid because they emphasize it even more. She's still she's still in the hospital room, and she's talking with Hawkins, and she's saying some stupid stuff about, well, maybe next year we'll get Michael Myers, or the next Halloween when he comes back, or it's really stupid, and it emphasizes even more that Laurie did not do crap in this movie, which was a horrible mistake that they did for crapping on Halloween 2 all the time. Another problem with this movie, a lot of I enjoyed the kills, but they bring in all of the original actors from the movie. I believe after we get the first scene with Hawkins and the other new kid, who is Allison's boyfriend, but she broke up with him and he comes back in this movie. After that scene, we are in the bar and we get the original actors back and they're having a conversation with each other and talking about the events from the 1978 Halloween. So we get introduced to all these original actors. They come back for this movie, and by the end of the movie, all of them are basically gone, plus some of the new actors that we got from 2018. Because Laurie's daughter, Karen, got killed in this movie as well. So you brought them all back just to pay homage to the original, and then kill them by the end of the movie just so that we can have some extra kills. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, it would be a lot of character development for those people. I would have been okay if maybe they killed a few of them. I was certainly okay with Karen dying. I didn't really care for her, no offense. Which is funny because her name's Karen. But maybe kill a few, but not all of them. Just to bring them back and kill them all by the end of the movie, just didn't make any sense. And that's what really made the ending really unsatisfying, is when Michael Myers is being beat up by the mob, which I thought that the whole mob situation in this movie was going to be bad. There's only one scene where the mob is chasing after this escaped patient who they think is Michael Myers, and he ends up jumping off the building. That was a pretty freaky scene that I have mixed thoughts on. Not really sure what to say about it, but I was really surprised that the mob didn't bother me at all in this movie. I thought it was an interesting aspect to Halloween Kills. Something unique that the Halloween franchise has never done. And in the final battle, when the mob does surround Michael Myers and they start beating him up, and eventually he gets stabbed in the neck and he lays on the ground, and then he comes back up and he kills pretty much the whole mob. It makes it feel like Michael Myers was cheated throughout this whole movie, just to survive to get to Halloween Ends. Even in the scene where we had all the firefighters being killed in the opening scene, well, it wasn't the opening scene, there was a few other scenes before we got that scene, but even when Michael Myers came out of the house that was burning down and he killed all those firefighters, it felt like he was just cheated throughout this movie, and it made him feel less human because he was taking all those hits, but he still kept coming back. Made him feel less human. Now, I would have been okay if they had a few times where maybe he gets shot or he gets stabbed and he comes back, but not him being able to fight off an entire mob and get out of the situation like it was nothing, when he can't fight a group of 3 girls at the ending of Halloween 2018 and he gets trapped in a basement. Just does not make any sense and does not add up. So feels like Michael Myers was cheated throughout this film just so that they could get him to Halloween Ends, which makes this movie feel even more like a filler for that reason. The ending was very unsatisfying. It felt like when I make an essay for school and I try to make a filler sentence at the end to try to resolve everything that I just said or make a conclusion to everything that I just said, but really everything that I'm saying is just filler because I'm not getting anywhere from where I started. That's how it felt. I know that was a really weird analogy, but that's what it felt like. And one more thing to address. I know I've been talking for a while about Halloween Kills and I really want to get it over with. One last thing to address is that some of the dialogue in this movie was really cringeworthy. They tried to make some really fantastic, inspirational quotes throughout this movie that were supposed to hit you to the heart, and they ended up making no sense. They felt like the most unnatural dialogue that you could ever hear. Like, there was people just having a normal conversation with each other, and then they try to introduce this quote like they're trying to design a poem with this, with the conversations that they're having. And it makes it cringeworthy. If they left it for the trailers, I would have been fine, but not bring it into the movie. And even in the trailers, when they're like, evil dies tonight, and the more Michael Myers kills, the more he transcends. I didn't even like it in the trailers, quite frankly, and it carries on to the movie as well. So I think that's all there is to address about Halloween Kills. I know that was a lot to talk about, and I probably rambled for close to 10 minutes just for Halloween Kills, so I apologize for that. Let's get on to the next spot. Next up is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, which when I was putting this list together, bounced up and down on my list, especially in the middle section of this. But I think the only problem that I really have with this movie, since I'm excluding how the mask looks and how George P. Wilbur played, I think the only problem that I had with this movie is that they have Laurie be killed off screen because of a car crash so that they can introduce a new character, which was Jamie. And don't get me wrong, she ended up being a really good character for the franchise. I definitely enjoyed her in this movie. And although she didn't make a really good performance in Halloween 5, I think she was still nice to have as something different from Laurie Strode. But I think that was the only mistake that they made, was getting rid of Laurie Strode, which maybe it was something about Jamie Lee Curtis not being able to show up at that time for the filming of this movie or something like that. But I think that's the only thing that this movie did wrong. Other than that, it felt like the part 3 of the Friday the 13th franchise. It just felt like your generic Halloween movie where Michael Myers returns to Haddonfield and he kills a bunch of people. That's what it felt like. And Jamie, Dr. Loomis, and the new protagonist that is introduced into this movie all did a really great job. Definitely enjoyed them. And the kills were really awesome. There's not much more to say about Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Just a really nice and enjoyable movie that it's not extremely good, it's not extremely bad, but if you're just bored and you want to watch a horror flick in October, Halloween 4 is always something nice to watch. It's when I think of the Halloween franchise, besides the original Halloween, I think of Halloween 4. It's just your generic Halloween movie, honestly. So, all there is to say about Halloween 4. Number 5, and some of you are going to be very surprised with this decision, because for the past 3 rankings, if I remember correctly, I've always had this movie up there with the original Halloween. But at number 5, it is going to be Halloween 2 from 1981. I know some of you are probably very surprised, but it all comes down to really 2 problems that I've noticed since over the years, basically. The first problem, they give Michael Myers a cliche motive where he's going after Laurie Strode because they are related, because they are siblings. And that one little scene where Dr. Loomis is talking to the lady who played in the original movie, always forget her name, they have a little interaction, and she divulges that they're actually siblings. For Halloween 1 and 2 feeling so similar, which is a positive about this movie, for feeling so similar, like there's this deep connection between the two. They just feel like they were actually taken on the same night. Like they filmed Halloween 1, and then directly after that they filmed Halloween 2. This movie feels like that. But they ruin it when they give Michael Myers a motive, and that cuts away so much for me for this movie. So I really dislike that. And the only other thing is Laurie sits in the hospital bed up until the final act of this movie. There could have been more done. She could have maybe fought back against Michael, tried to escape the hospital, but the nurses or doctors didn't want her to escape because they knew that she had to still stay in there to recover and whatnot. There could have been something else done rather than her just sitting in there for most of the movie. But those are really the only 2 negatives. The kills are obviously amped up from the original. We get a lot more kills, we get a lot more blood, so that's really nice. And I also like the setting of this movie, the big hospital for Michael Myers to wander around in and kill kill people aimlessly, eventually getting to Laurie Strode. I really like that, and the kills are awesome in this movie. What else? Dr. Loomis makes another great performance in this movie. And I think that's all there is to say about Halloween 2. So Halloween 2, I know some of you are surprised, and some of you may be even mad, goes at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Halloween 2018, which honestly, the position of this movie ahead of Halloween 2 really boils down to the fact that Michael Myers does not have a motive in this movie, which ultimately made it very hard for them to try to go in a different direction with the franchise, and they didn't execute it perfectly. But at least Michael Myers does not have a motive, so that's a nice bonus, although it carries along a lot of other problems that they had to address, and unfortunately they didn't address very well in Halloween Kills, but it ends up making Halloween 2018 look even better for that reason. Kills are really awesome. The new characters that we were introduced to, Karen and Allison, Laurie's daughter, are really awesome. It feels like they're her actual daughter and granddaughter, because you can see some of the traits that have been carried on to them, because Laurie obviously described to them her trauma that she had and wanted to prepare them for the worst all the time up in their childhood. And especially Karen was not able to enjoy her childhood that much for that reason. So I really do like the introduction of those two new characters. Kills were really great. I think I might have already said that, but the kills were really great. Some people like to talk about the humor in this movie. It does ruin a few of the scenes for me, especially when we have the scene where Michael Myers comes out of the closet and he kills the babysitter, and we have the kid saying a few lines, and it ruins the suspense of that scene. So I know a lot of people like to talk about that. It's a small little thing. There's not as much humor in this movie as there is in Halloween Kills, which, at least for having a lot of humor in Halloween Kills, it didn't ruin it. But in some of the scenes in this movie, the humor did ruin the suspense of some of the scenes. But I know some people talked about how it wasn't funny. I thought the humor was really funny, and it's modern day. Any movie now has to have some bit of humor in it. So Halloween 2018, I thought that the ending probably could have been used for Halloween Kills, which would have benefited Halloween Kills, and then we could have had a more satisfying Halloween Kills ending for this movie instead. But that's Halloween Kills' problem for them doing that. So when I got out of the movie and they showed the picture of the basement, which reminded me of the original, because Michael Myers wasn't there in the basement. It just reminded me of the original because he was gone when he fell off the roof and Dr. Loomis looked back. Reminded me so much of the original, and I thought, yes, they're going to make another sequel, and I'm really, really excited for this. I guess the only other negative thing that I didn't like about this movie is when we get to the final act, I don't like how Michael Myers looks like a little idiot being toyed around so much. He keeps getting tricked over and over again by Laurie and the other characters until eventually he gets trapped in the basement. Then he looks up from the basement like a stupid little idiot, and he in his head, he's going, "What have I done?" And it's really cringeworthy, and it raises questions how Michael Myers was not able to fight off this group of people, but in Halloween Kills he was cheated throughout the whole movie, killing mobs of people. Just doesn't make any sense. But Halloween 2018 goes at number 4, a very satisfying sequel for all the years where we just kept getting crappy sequels. So that's it. Number 3, and I finally got an individual copy after all these years of being a fan. I finally got an individual copy for this movie. It's going to be Halloween H2O, which I ultimately decided was the better version of Halloween 2018, and that's why it gets the number 3 spot. This movie makes for one of the most satisfying conclusions to a Halloween trilogy. Forget Resurrection, Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween H2O, very satisfying trilogy, and in Halloween H2O it ends with a very, very satisfying ending. And I think it is the better version of Halloween 2018 because Laurie's trauma that she has in this movie feels more realistic than in Halloween 2018. In Halloween 2018, she's kind of introverted, she's aggressive towards people, but in this movie, she tries to drink away her problems by drinking a lot, and she moved away into a completely different town. She doesn't live in Haddonfield anymore. She lives in she works as, I think, a boarding school teacher all the way in California, so she's trying to hide from Michael Myers, and she's drinking to try to clear her trauma and stuff like that, but she still gets flashbacks of Michael Myers in this movie. I just think that her trauma in this movie feels a lot more realistic. Now, her only having a son in this movie, I feel that Halloween 2018 did a better job of having her have a granddaughter and a daughter, because it made for some interesting new characters than just this son that she has that ends up just feeling like a regular side character, just kind of there. Because for the most part in the final act, it's really Laurie against Michael. And by the ending of this movie, Laurie realizes she can't hide anymore. She's got to fight him head on. And we get a really nice final battle between her and Michael Myers, and it ends up making one of the most satisfying endings in the Halloween franchise, where she just chops off his head, and the original score turns on. Just perfect ending. And forget Halloween Resurrection. The original, Halloween 2, Halloween H2O, best trilogy in the franchise. Forget Resurrection. Just Halloween H2O, it is the best sequel to the Halloween, the original Halloween, because the ending is really satisfying. Her trauma feels really realistic, and I feel that 20 years later is more realistic than 40 years later. I realize there's not much they can do in the Halloween 2018 version, but 20 years, it just feels like the right amount of time after the events that happened to her in 1978. So Halloween H2O, a very satisfying sequel to the Halloween franchise and the best sequel to the Halloween franchise. It goes at number 3. 2, this is going to be pretty controversial for some of you. Some of you might have seen this coming by process of elimination, but it is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. This movie is all over the place as far as opinions go for this movie in the community. Some people have it high on my list, very few people. I'm one of the only few people that has put it this high on their list. I've seen a lot of people put it kind of in the middle of their list, and I've seen quite a few people put it at the bottom of their list as well. And it's all simply because this movie is the black sheep of the franchise. They were trying to go in a different direction in this movie, excluding Michael Myers, because John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wanted to make the Halloween franchise into an anthology, which I completely respected. But unfortunately, because of the 80s slashers hype, this movie was left as the black sheep of the franchise because people wanted Michael Myers back. And I would have loved to see this franchise go into an anthology because it would have been better for the quality of the movies of the Halloween franchise, and also it would have made the Halloween franchise a lot more unique than things like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, Leprechaun, Chucky, all those other slasher franchises that we know and love. But Halloween 3 gives me nostalgia because it carries along some of those elements that the original movie has. And ever since I watched it for the first time, I wondered, why did I neglect this movie just because Michael Myers wasn't in it? I immediately became attached to it, and now I watch it every year, and I enjoy it every single time. This movie carries on some of the same elements as the original, like I said, those being, it has a very, very simple and straightforward plot. A man manufactures masks, and his plan is to distribute it throughout the nation and have a lot of people die on Halloween. Very straightforward, and the guy's plan is really evil and psychotic. So, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And also, I really like the tone of this film. It feels like the original Halloween because, for the most part, the second half of this movie takes place in Santa Mira, which is a very unusual small town, which fits the tone of this film and has a similar tone to the original Halloween, so I really, really like that. Some of the kills are even really good in this movie. For the few kills that we don't have a whole bunch. Some of them are really, really good, and I do enjoy them, especially when we get Dick Warlock, the Michael Myers actor of Halloween 2, where he comes by and rips the guy's head off. Just a really awesome kill. So for the kills that we have, which there isn't a whole bunch of them, some of them are really, really awesome. The only thing I don't like about this movie is that the protagonist isn't all that interesting, if I'm going to be honest. He's not likable, is what I should say, is because he's an alcoholic and he cheats on his wife, so it's hard to like this protagonist in the movie and want to follow him throughout the movie. Like, this is the guy who's being this is the guy we're supposed to like and we're supposed to root for. He's not the best protagonist of the Halloween franchise, but it works. The final act of this movie, when I watched it for the first time, I thought that, or what I meant was, the protagonist attempting to ruin the antagonist's plan. I thought if they would have left it there and they got away happily ever after, would have been largely unsatisfying. But they had a similar ending to Halloween where we think that it is resolved, but they hit us again when he tries to call for a commercial to be removed, and he says, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" And the commercial won't go away, so you just know that a lot of people likely died. Just a really good ending, much like Halloween. It leaves us with just enough of information possible so it can leave the viewer to decide what they think was the conclusion or resolution to the movie. So I really like that. You think that there's falling action, but then it hits you with a climax right at the end of the movie, and I really like that. Like I said, carries on those similar elements to the original Halloween. So Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I know some of you are going to strongly disagree with me on this one, but for me, it goes at number 2. And number 1, this honestly shouldn't be a surprise. This shouldn't be controversial at all. This movie is a horror classic. It's an absolutely timeless movie and will probably be at the top of my Halloween list forever. It is John Carpenter's Halloween. I don't have to say a lot about this movie, but the main thing about this movie that makes it so great is it is the quintessential example of simplicity equals excellence. Has a very straightforward plot that just works so well, and Michael Myers' character is embraced by Dr. Loomis so well by the way that Dr. Loomis describes him throughout the movie is just absolutely perfect, and it's not unnatural like we had in Halloween Kills. The quotes are just absolutely perfect. The way that he describes him, it adds to his character so much because we are left with Michael Myers being just a shape. He's an emotionless character. He's just there. And Dr. Loomis is there to help add to his elements of evil and his sort of human, sort of supernatural, not really sure. Dr. Loomis's character is there to support the character behind Michael Myers that we're so unsure about in this movie. And of course, Jamie Lee Curtis does a great performance as a final girl in this movie. And although the kills aren't the best in this movie, most of them are just strangulations or simple throat slits or stabs. That doesn't mean anything because this movie is an absolute horror classic. So despite the kills not being the best of the franchise, the sequels usually always vamp up the kill count and the blood and the gore. This movie is an absolute classic and will likely be at the top of my list forever. The tone of this film also feels really great. The setting of a Midwestern town just works perfectly for this movie. And the score is really, really great. That simple score that, funny enough, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was years ago since I heard about this, the score was actually inspired by Jack in the Box. So it doesn't sound a lot like Jack in the Box, but it was somewhat inspired by Jack in the Box, if I remember correctly. And who would have thought that a Captain Kirk mask would make for an iconic horror slasher killer mask that we instantly recognize? And without this movie, I think that the slasher hype and many slasher movies, or subsequent slasher movies, likely would not exist without Halloween. Although there were other movies that came before Halloween, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho, I think Halloween really sparked that slasher hype when it came out. I don't want to miss anything, but I think that's all there is to say about the original Halloween. And that is it for the ranking. I'm sorry I am late to this. It's been over a week since the new Halloween Kills movie has came out. Had a little delay on the videos because of some mistakes, and also I had some other stuff going on, so I really apologize for that. But there is still more Halloween content to come out this October, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and read the community posts so that you can stay updated with any potential changes. And join the Discord, link will always be in the description of every video. That's it. Like and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you next time.